Guys, is Oscar Piastri finally losing his patience with McLaren? What do we think? In the team radio at the Singapore Grand Prix, I saw a man that was so frustrated. A guy that, honestly, I think he's had enough. The team radio messages that's been going on over the course of this season with Oscar and regarding, fairness and regarding, the strategy and everything of that nature, is starting to tick Oscar off. A man that we all labeled as somebody who was so chilled, so calm, nothing worried him, nothing troubled him. I don't know, guys. I think he's now getting there. And there's obviously several reasons to why this might be the case. Number one, there is a title on the line. Let's not forget this. There is a Formula One World Championship on the line. His first ever in Formula One. McLaren's first ever potentially since 2008. It's 2025. This is how far McLaren have come from, right? And Oscar was kind of cruising this season in terms of like steady, not like he was gone clear, but he was steadily winning races, steadily on the podiums, even if Lando Norris, who is his teammate as well as his title rival, like even if he was getting points and getting podiums and getting race wins, Oscar was still there. Oscar was still amongst it. And so the gap between the two drivers would be like 10 points, it could be 8 points, it could be 15 points, it could be anything. When I see the way the situation is right now, and as the races have gone on, and you see some of the incidences that have taken place, like in Monza, when they're asking and they're having team radios with Lando Norris asking who should we pit first, Oscar or you? And you're just sitting there like, what is going on here? Why are we having this conversation? And we're having it again in Singapore. They're asking Lando Norris, do you want us to pit yourself first or do we pit Oscar first? We're thinking about covering Charles Leclerc. That seems to come up often as well, like it did last time. And Oscar in the first turn, into turn one, has contact with Lando Norris. Lando Norris has contact with Max Verstappen, which leads the contact into Oscar Piastri. Oscar, feels hard done by, gets hit hard, and so Lando overtakes him. And Oscar's like, so what? So what are we doing here? He's barged me, so what are we going to do about this? And the team were sort of like, yeah, we're investigating it. We'll get back to you, that kind of deal. And then the FIA went on their comms and said, that we've investigated. There's no further action. Racing incident type of deal. And that's kind of like where McLaren went with it as well. They were like, look, we didn't see there was any problem with that. We're gonna have no further action. We'll discuss it after the race. And Oscar's like, oh, swear, this is what we're doing now. And throughout I didn't hear all the team radio because Sky coverage wasn't showing necessarily every single conversation, but it seemed like, as the race had gone on, Oscar, even the way he was talking back to his engineer, to Tom Stallard, even the way he was talking back to, he just had enough. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. Let's just get on with this. And P4 is still a good position to finish, but that's a bad day at the office for Oscar, if that makes sense. And especially when you consider what took place in Baku a couple of weeks prior, this is probably where the added pressure comes on. And Oscar's thinking, look, I just want one day to go well. Because even in qualifying at Singapore, I know I'm jumping everywhere. Qualifying at Singapore, Oscar's doing his run. A yellow flag comes out because I think, is it Gasly or someone's trying to get out of the way? And they get out of the way. And they've had an incident that's trying to get him out of the way. And he's like, come on, guys. What are we doing here? We're throwing yellow flags now for people trying to get out of the way. And you could just see that there's that something underlying that's eating away at him slowly, but there could be a moment where this could fuse up big time. It could fuse up big time. Now, Oscar has to remember, look, he's 24 points ahead of Lando Norris right now in the Drivers' Championship, right? At the time of recording, 22 points, sorry, at the time of recording. He can relax. He just needs a breather. He just needs to take a minute in and say, do you know what? Look, the championship is still mine. The championship is still mine if I perform at my best and not worry about anything else. Because as soon as you've got to get McLaren involved, it doesn't seem to work for him. It never seems to work for him. But I do believe that Oscar's losing his patience with McLaren. I do believe it. Because, as I've mentioned earlier, there's a title race on the line. There's enough pressure in his life right now. He doesn't need this added extra curricular with the whole McLaren of it all. He doesn't need this. And I'm sure he's thinking, mate, I could just do with you guys just being competent enough to just, let's just, you're calling it papaya rules. Oh, all right, then let's stick to it. Let's actually like tell me how this is fair and how that's fair, because that's been a lot of the Oscar's questioned a lot of the fairness of decision making. Hasn't necessarily questioned the ethos behind papaya rules or anything of that nature. I think both drivers are fully aware, but it's the application now when it comes to the situations at hand. And I feel like he feels hard done by. And he had a hard weekend in Baku. It was a nightmare in Baku. And I think Singapore was one of those ones where it's like small things are starting to get to him a little bit more. And I'm with him. I fully sympathize with him in this essence, because I think there was something for him to do. There was something for him to argue for in this one. And Lando had damage as well because he hit into Verstappen. I mean, Lando could have completely capitulated the race altogether, because not only could he have hit Max Verstappen, say Max Verstappen spins, Lando spins, Oscar spins, all three of them could have gone in one go, and that would have been mental. That would have been quite interesting to see. But it would have been detrimental to McLaren, because they would have secured that 10th Constructors' Championship. They wouldn't have secured the 2 back-to-back titles in a row. But they have done that, and that's one thing that Oscar's got to, any sort of silver lining of it all is that he is part of the team that has secured the Constructors' Championship already, with, I think, 6 races to go. So that's a positive. But I do believe Oscar is losing it with them, because then it doesn't feel like they're giving him justifiable reasons for their actions. And you can see it. You can see that it's eating at him. It's wearing him off. And it's the first time I've noticed, especially at the Singapore Grand Prix, where I noticed and I thought, I think he's losing it with them. And I just wonder what the debrief was like. I wonder what took place in there. And I want to see how Oscar reacts in Austin. I want to see what he's like in the next Grand Prix in Texas, and see how he bounces back from this. From Lando being ahead of him at the end of the race weekend, because of course that's what he's concerned about. I don't think he cares about winning the races. I think he cares more so about finishing ahead of Lando, because that's his primary competition. Yes, Max is somewhere down the wing, but he's down the wing, so you ain't got to worry about Max Verstappen. So yeah, Oscar Piastri to me is losing patience with McLaren. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think Oscar is losing patience? If you like Oscar Piastri, like this video, because we'll be doing plenty more content regarding Oscar Piastri, McLaren as well. I've also got a McLaren bias channel called McLaren Fan TV, so make sure you do have a click on that. And if you like Formula 1 content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1K. Who knows, maybe I'm at 1K by the time this video comes out. YouTube thinks you'll like this video over here, so make sure you go ahead and click on that. And until next time, lights out.